This video is intended to describe a lightblade talisman named Rooted. Joining me today will be my whimsical stick figure chakra map, which I'll be referencing quite a bit for various chakric Q simulations on the vast composition of this talisman. And without further ado, I'll be discussing the blade band scaffolding as a preface, seen like so, going laterally like up here to this side, as well as this side right here at this lateral band, and the apex band, which is developed to be the lightblade scaffolding, vaguely resembling a figure 8 for efficient recirculation of the entirety of the crystalline composition of this wearable energy generator. Technically, can be worn as a talisman. So, as a perfect place to start would be the transmutation ratio seen right here, which is a combination of both hematite and smoky quartz offset through this lateral band, up the side band, this lateral band as well, and this side band right here to be its own contained quadrant of the same frequency of, once again, the transmutation ratio, with hematite serving as an excellent iron-based stimulant of frequency energy that successfully takes all excessive stray radial energies and firmly anchors it through the root chakra into the earth stars and into the earth for reprocessing, in tandem with smoky quartz, which stimulates the same form of energy function. Also, just like hematite, is a fantastic composting of excess energy by firmly anchoring it, once again, all the excess radial energy to work as a grounding agent to firmly stimulate the root chakra with the earth stars, the chakras beneath the feet, into the earth meridian matrix for reprocessing. Hence, the two together have been dubbed the transmutation ratio. With that much rapid contact dialysis with the earth plane, it's very discouraging for negative stagnant energies to maintain internally or externally in the field. Hence, it works as a great foundational preface to discuss this full long dissertation, because this little quadrant has a distinct role of making a very powerful grounding purification emanation, which is very shielding, and also works in conjunction with the vast crystalline array that is this talisman to encourage the excessive amount of energy, which will be discussed momentarily, to firmly take the foundational anchoring and firmly bring it into the earth for A, purification of energy, B, as well as a way to ensure tangibility and encourage the magic becoming real, which is quite the important prerogative of the transmutation ratio. So starting off with the ratio seen right here, that would definitely put it in the realm of being rooted, hence its archetypal designation name, would be red jasper, seen right here. Red jasper is a red ray earth elemental frequency that is the most stable earth root chakra stimulant in the mineral kingdom. Hence, it is the quintessential stabilized, rooted, in the body experience that I've employed quite frequently throughout the years with great effect. So the aspect of having the most stable vibration on the root chakra is that to be very encouraging to the entire scaffolding auric field as a dominant feature of this device's emanation to encourage a very stable, grounded, rooted root chakra, quite simply. Then, in between each of these node points in ignition sequence would be tourmalated quartz, which is clear quartz, which of course clear quartz is a fantastic neutral amplifier of other frequencies, hence it works as a great subcapacitation for the conjoining points of the red jasper, the quartz to amplify the entire wavelength of the energy in between each of these nodes. So that's where, of course, clear quartz, being a neutral amplifier of energy, is also a fantastic natural neutral ambient accelerant, particularly of other impulses or frequencies, such as prayers or intentions for the wielder, to thereby put it in the realm of being consciousness-assisted technology. But the aspect of why I mentioned this tourmalated quartz is a very special feature of actually having black tourmaline inside quartz makes for a natural amplification of the transmutation purification that black tourmaline happens to offer, which, just like implied with the transmutation ratio, black tourmaline or swirl is a very fantastic grounding purification agent as well. Hence, the natural amplification for the entire blade band node point makes for a dramatic neutral grounding purification emanation to even higher threshold in conjunction with the red jasper to stabilize. So that'd be the primary blade band seen like so, grounding back into the transmutation scaffolding to encourage the rapid, concentrated, focused energy of grounding into the earth, like mentioned, at least thrice before that. Then, towards the very apex, this would be the apex band, where of course the necklace shall be installed, seen like so. So the aspect of the apex band is that of the coherence ratio, which is a frequency combination that's gained quite a bit of momentum in the recent endeavors. Starting off with the, once again, tourmalated quartz, which has the clear quartz as the neutral accelerative energy, with the black tourmaline being naturally amplified to encourage very high yield dynamic purification of the energy field. Starting off with lapis lazuli. Lapis lazuli is a very famous 5th and 6th chakra stimulant of the wind elemental spectrum that has been quite deified in many mystical traditions across the world, namely Egyptian mystery schools, which I will omit to condense this video because there's already a great deal to discuss at a glance, obviously, to a full proper dissertation. But the aspect of the coherence ratio is a very, very nice, a perfect antithesis to the very strong red ray rooted concentration. This would be a much more of a concentrated 5th and 6th chakra stimulant for perfect complementary balance of the primary blade bands, which will be exposed once it's fully operational in the custody of the recipient. Pardon my digressions. So like I mentioned, lapis lazuli, a very powerful sovereign, higher truth, divine alignment of knowing thyself, which is quite famous. Then between that, of course, will be the, once again, the tourmalated quartz to work as a neutral amplification, purification, going into purple fluorite. So fluorite of the purple spectrum is a fantastic wind elemental composition that is very, very effective for bringing cohesive order out of chaos. Hence, the coherence has been highly derivative with the purple fluorite, very specifically, to mitigate the chaotic patterns of distortion that are natural most human beings. Hence, we're on this planet with divisiatory imprintations. Pardon my digressions. Anyway, back on target. So the aspect of fluorite is very, very effective for bringing whole brain thinking, aka mitigating the left and right hemispheric interference that be impeding one's natural third eye pineal gland capacity to factory blueprint God intended settings, quite simply. So the aspect of the two together make for a very powerful ratio combination of that of the coherence archetypal designation. Like I mentioned, it's a very fantastic antithesis to the very rooted, strong earth vibration seen right there. So like mentioned, that goes all the way back here till it grounds back into the transmutation scaffolding. So before I continue all the individual exotic crystals seen right here, of course the big idea too is that the vaguely resembling figure 8 lightblade scaffolding works as a containment recirculation of the excess energy to perpetually recirculate, particularly in light of all the highly exotic varieties, because this talisman is very well stacked and very diverse and very dynamically built out. And so that's of course why I make the big point to reiterate the aspect of the blade band scaffolding being the dominant recirculation of the excess energy before everything else is mentioned, starting now. So, and of course, before I mention all these individual crystals, I'll mention the fact that these crystals all seen right here somehow, some way have been wire wrapped and terminated to the primary wire of the construct, which serves like a main vein for the entirety of the apparatus, but consists of copper, brass, and silver spooled together, seen all the way through here, even wrapped on top of itself as the necklace mount point, which of course is the ideal, like I said, main vein for the vibration. So every single crystal we're mentioning thus far, as well as after this, somehow, some way, have been grounded to this for maximum vibrational compound interest. And so, of course, this is pretty evident, but each crystal I'll be mentioning now, that's part of the makeup of this design, or part of the crystalline collective, that is of course, all like organs of the crystalline entity all working together. So they all generate significant compound vibrational interest, like I mentioned a few moments ago. I'm just very thorough in my dissertations, I guess, so sometimes I repeat myself intentionally to get the point across. Anyhow, At the very apex of the blade band seen right here, this would be star argonite, which is a calcium-based crystal that is very, very effective for full light body healing, particularly any calcified imprintations from the auric field from top to bottom that would be densified, manifesting as a dis-ease. So this particular crystal, working in trinity with a certain trio I utilize as master healer frequencies for full light body dynamic healing, is very well warranted, seen in this construct right here. So the aspect of star argonite being a calcium-based is very clearing to any stagnant points. It also works as a full light body activator that works like a stimulant to the entire chakra column, like I mentioned, from top to bottom. And the other part of the apex of this is a very special gold ray crystal named Libyan gold tektite, which is a very, very lovely, powerful celestial golden ray crystal, which vibrationally speaking is a cousin to moldavite, but not quite as famous. So Libyan gold tektite was actually utilized by the pharaohs of antiquity to be carved into their scarab breastplates, which of course went into their Magi God King breastplates that were indicative of their badge of office as the pharaohs. So this frequency right here is a very powerful celestial fire energy that is a very powerful solar plexus and sacrum stimulant, so thereby being a fire elemental composition with golden ray overtones, which stimulates the entire auric field as a whole luminous golden ray of emanation from space, much like moldavite. So as a joke, I refer to it as goldavite at times, for exactly that purpose of being a very powerful dharmic accelerant to manifest one's highest path into reality. So then above that, on this side of the blade face, would be a white ray crystal named scoicite. Scoicite is a very fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra stimulant of the higher chakras in a very soothing manner. So physically speaking, it's also very conducive towards serotonin balancing levels and also divine peaceful disposition, which can be very much a contributing factor to one's higher self-witness, self-perspective that is transcendent of the limitations of the finite ego-mind identity. That's quite a bit to say, so I'm just going to keep moving on, but long story short, to consolidate, is that this is a quintessential white ray stone of divinity that I employ quite religiously for exactly that purpose of being a very calm, divine, stimulant inspiration towards one's highest nature, once again. Then right here is the infamous moldavite, or famous, depending on who you ask, as a very powerful green ray crystal of great notoriety this day and age for being quite the cosmic swift kick in the pants. So the aspect of moldavite is a very, very powerful storm elemental green ray chakra stimulant that activates the entire auric field and also very, very swiftly aligns one's energy field with one's divine nature. Hence, the infamy it receives, of course, is that it works very swiftly to encourage one's alignment towards their divine path with hurricane force. So it can be quite infamous for ruining people's lives when people's internal, external worlds shift dramatically towards a true self matrix, which can be very taxing on the false self matrix that has been, of course, perpetually held up as a form of illusion that is not our true divine nature manifest. So it indeed is a quintessential stone of the Holy Grail, according to legend, for that purpose. And the aspect also, as a disclaimer, with all these transmuters and stabilizers, these, of course, have been developed to quite essentially mitigate the timeline whiplash of rapid dharmic onset acceleration to be very transmuted and smooth and stabilized as quick as possible for maximum efficiency of one's dharmic alignment coming into view to the conscious self. So that's the aspect, too, I always discuss when employing moldavite, is that there's many contingencies involved for maximum efficiency to, once again, God willing, mitigate the timeline whiplash of one's dharmic self manifest fully in the conscious self. So right here above the moldavite would be the legendary ruby. Ruby is a corundum-based crystal, which has oftentimes a 9 out of 10 the hardness scale, which means its red ray crystalline structure is of a very dense atomical structure, which is very, very vivid and intense for the root chakra range. Hence, it's a very famous crystal of antiquity and magic utilization and royal, of course, appraisal. And it is quite famous for being the most powerful root chakra from the mineral kingdom and has quite the deification lore behind it, which I will omit just to keep on going because there's already a tremendous amount to discuss here. And so to the right of the ruby right here would also be fulgurite. Fulgurite is actually the product of lightning striking sand. So the silica imprintation of sand being vaporized by lightning is caught in its own very crystal called fulgurite. Fulgurite, literally harnessing the power of lightning, is a very, very powerful light body activator that estimates the entire chakra column as well, and is also very famously praised as a spirit tool of antiquity to amplify the prayers of shamans in resonance, to amplify their prayers back to Creator for service to the people, very particularly. So that, of course, has the connotations of being a frequency accelerant of manifestation assistance, at least in shamanic use of antiquity. Then above that would be another specimen of Libyan gold tektite, seen right here, much like the guy I mentioned down here, just to have a little further dose of sovereign empowerment. Then on this side of the blade face is starting off with blue lace agate, which makes for a very fantastic, perfect complementary antithesis to the red jasper stimulation dominance right here. So the aspect of the blue lace agate being the perfect complementary balance, vibrationally speaking, to red jasper is the most stable fifth chakra stimulant in mineral kingdom based on the water elemental spectrum, which makes for a very nice centripetal circuit of regeneration between the theoretical stimulation of hydrogen in the body with the red ray and then the oxygen with the blue ray seen right here, thereby combining to be perpetual perfected stabilized regeneration. That's enough of that. That's enough of those deep theoretical dissertations. I must prioritize the cataloging of the crystalline composition. Not as easy as it looks sometimes when there's so much to say. So above that, to support that role right there, will be the famous Blu-ray crystal named turquoise, which is quite famous across the world, which, like I mentioned thrice before, I will omit the extensive lore behind this crystal to keep it consolidated and coherent as possible. But the turquoise relevancy right here is a very powerful fifth chakra stimulant, thereby combining the elements of the terrestrial four elements found in the Lakota medicine wheel of earth, fire, water, and wind through a fifth chakra focus, which is a tremendous stone of wholeness to knowing thyself, which of course works fantastic in dominant resonance with the blue lace agate of this side of the blade face to tremendously stabilize one's highest truth and encourage that manifestation grounding. So this next section I'll be discussing will actually have this tan leather installed much like so, but obviously in a far more aesthetic fashion for a distinct purpose far more than aesthetic. So the aspect of the leather seen right here plays many purposes. So it's also a earthy tone vibration, which makes for a fantastic color therapy augmentation that's very supportive to the rooted, grounded goal of this construct. B, it also works as a way to insulate the energy seen right here so that the stray radial energy leaking off here is more condensed between the primary and apex blade bands for further energetic recirculation efficiency. As well as C, it's a way to ensure that all these subtly stacked crystals seen right here are actually protected as they're being worn as a talisman on the person or in the pocket if clandestine deems necessity, and quite simply, to protect them so none of the crystalline organs do fall away, so it maintains its intentional function. And of course, D, it does look like a more completed construct once it's properly installed, but indeed wanted to reiterate that the criticality of this part of the construct is far more than looks. So, now that's out of the way, I'll be discussing the composition of the hood of this construct. So seen right here is a larger specimen of black kyanite, which I have omitted down here for later as part of the capstone of the dissertation, but black kyanite, as a preface, is the most rapid transfer of energy in the mineral kingdom, particularly with the black ray concentration, to encourage rapid dispersal auric field through the root chakra into the earth stars and the earth absolute quick as possible. Like nothing quite bridges and gaps the ground resonance with Mother Earth quite as fast as black kyanite, hence they're of the essence for a very grounded, earthy, vibrational construct. So that's why a larger dose has been employed here, which I will save for later, more in depth about the composition towards the end. So, Right here will be ruby and zoisite. Like mentioned before, ruby, the quintessential root chakra mineral kingdom, is synergistically combined with zoisite. Zoisite is a fantastic green ray crystal combined with the ruby to make a very fantastic heart-mind coherence stimulant. So when the heart-mind coherence is quite much in line, obviously it's a very advantageous disposition for the spiritual aspirant. I'd say probably a primary directive of a spiritual quest, actually, in my humble opinion. But the aspect of what makes it quite critical too is that it's another dose of the ruby to encourage the heart, mind's root chakra stimulation. Makes for a very fantastic combination to encourage one's true self fully manifesting in the earth plane, which is obviously its own merit. Then over here would be another very stabilizing frequency, that of fire agate. Fire agate is the most stable fire energy mineral kingdom that stabilizes the root chakra, the sacrum, and the solar plexus. So that's another one of those quintessential stabilizing in the earth, in the body, in the earth experience frequency stimulants that are quite advantageous for a very strong rooted, grounded disposition. Then above that would be a lovely pink gray crystal named kunzite, which is a high heart, love frequency stimulant, of course, yet it has a very high lithium concentration in its crystalline structure, which is a very, very soothing agent to bring soothing, calming, vibrational love. Even a small dose of these exotic crystals in a closed electric circuit go a very long way for the entirety of the composition. It's really rather evident I say that, but I'm rather thorough in these dissertations. So then, right here, speaking of stability, this green ray crystal seen right there, that would be moss green agate, to be a green ray water elemental most stabilizing vibration of the heart chakra in the mineral kingdom, which of course goes in tandem with the other spectrums represented here of these stabilizations. So obviously it has a very strong stable vibrational engineering disposition. So these little supporting elements that we talk about are very much intrinsically aligned with the prerogative of the construct's existence. So then right here would be Holly Blue Agate, a very rare purple ray crystal, even though the trade name is Holly Blue, from Northern Oregon. That is a very fantastic wind elemental stabilization of the 6th and 7th chakras. So, as a summary of all the stability agents mentioned so far, you have Earth with red jasper being the strong domination of the frequency right here, recirculation. Then you have, of course, fire with the fire agate I mentioned down here. Then water, seen both with the moss green and the blue lace agate, as well as wind right here, which thereby confers, once again, the terrestrial 4 elements of earth, fire, water, and wind in their most stable vibratory crystalline signatures I can get my hands on in one reactive circuit, which is very, very advantageous for the entire auric field's longevity capacity. Then, right here would be another very special green ray crystal named prehnite. Prehnite is a very fantastic 3rd and 4th chakra stimulant, that of water and earth. And most applicably here, too, I consider it one of the cleanest green ray frequency attunements to the realm of Raphael the Archangel, the seraphim of healing. So that's an aspect, too, that makes it a very clean healing frequency attunement, very advantageous for a lot of reasons. Then right here would be another one of those master healers I mentioned in Trinity with the star argonite, that of seraphinite. Seraphinite is a green ray crystal named after the seraphim archangels, which makes for a very fantastic full light body healer as well. That swings the entire auric field to basically factory blueprint settings where imprintation onsets occur to bog the system down to manifest as a dis-ease. It works very diligently to dismantle any of these traumatic patterns from the system from top to bottom in a very efficient, angelic manner. So that's why I mentioned the aspect of the star argonite with that, as well as Tibetan black quartz seen right here. Tibetan black quartz comes from Tibet, a region of the earth with virtually unrivaled spiritual discipline we can recall upon as a species of devoted spiritual concentrated endeavors. So the aspect of Tibetan black quartz makes for a very powerful ohm resonance frequency generator that's very, very purifying to the auric field, and the nerve ganglia that make up the entire meridian sheath of the auric field, or the chakra column, basically. So what I'm trying to say there, to be more consolidated and simplistic and comprehensible, is that this frequency generator is also another master light body healer that works very diligently to stimulate the entire auric field from bottom to expand the rooting cord, as well as the expansion of the higher chakras, the whole toric field alignment of the idyllic light body activation. Hence, I'll circle back to the concept of the triumphant trifecta of Tibetan black quartz, seraphonite, as well as star argonite, all work similarly to the functionality of a fully stimulated auric field from top to bottom to basically dismantle any habitual patterns of disease stored in the field, or the physical body for that matter, transferred over, as a triumphant trinity of master healers. Hence that long-winded little rant dissertation part of this whole thing. Then right here, this black gray crystal seen right here would be black tektite. This is the product of meteorite impacting sand, which thereby makes it a heaven to earth frequency alignment. Or a tektite, of course, is a space glass vaporizing the meteorite sand to have a great amount of heat and pressure impact from the stars. So it carries that vibration of heaven to earth in a very powerful vibrational manner. And luckily, it's a black-gray crystal, which also works as a cosmic accelerant, but luckily from a very foundational, grounded, roots-up raising of vibrations manner to tangibly raise vibrations of the entire auric field from a foundational standpoint, which makes it very effective for a utilitarian light body generator healer as well, in that capacity. As well as, no matter what designation these various platforms are built under, black tektite is virtually always there to be a very nice supportive foundational raising of vibration of whatever spirit tool comes into existence for this purpose. So it's very utilitarian bread and butter base foundation utilization, much like the transmutation scaffolding for virtually every construct for that distinct purpose. Alrighty, so that would be the entirety where the hood would be concealed. Oh, one more thing. It's rather concealed based on all the wire and all the other crystalline compositions, but down here, there is shungite. Shungite is a black-gray crystal quite in vogue in this day and age for being quite famous for mitigating 5G or Wi-Fi wavelengths that we contend with as a modern species. So the aspect of, just like the transmutation ratio and tourmaline mentioned thus far, makes for a very dynamic carbon-based charcoal filter purification of harmful wavelengths to once again neutralize, mitigate, and transmute as quick as possible so that it does not stick to the field. Long story short. Okay, so once again, that would be the hood, which will have this little guy installed in the proper fashion once this video is fully concluded. At the very apex of the core of the device, seen right here, is a very special crystalline alloy, to get a proper angle, named Golden Healer Quartz. Golden Healer Quartz is a gold white light high heart source attunement energy emanation, which is pretty self-evident, saying that in application to this apparatus is that the clean gold white light a source attunement frequency alignment goes a very long way towards one's endeavor to align with their holy grail configuration. So that's another clean dose of gold white light source attunement at the very apex of the core of the device. So speaking of the core of the device, I'll discuss it right now. It's barely visible at this point, but underneath all these crystals seen from here to here, there is a piece of wood right here, which I gathered from my backyard, from my buddy all the way out in the distance, an oak tree, who drops branches on the ground for me frequently. That makes for the core of the device to serve as a carbon-based resonance to the silica apparatus built around it, which makes for a very nice transference of this energy into the, for now, carbon-based platforms of the human avatar, which makes for a very nice silica carbon resonance frequency to once again be another agent to encourage the magic being real. And also the choice of oak is always a fabulous one due to the fact that oak is its own very famous wood range in antiquity and mysticism and mythology. But the aspect why it's tremendously relevant here is that oak is also, quite simply, a very hard, dense wood, which is very, very obvious. But the aspect of why that's more worth discussing in this dissertation is that oak also makes for a very strong wooden grain, which means that the dense atomical carbon-based structure is at a very strong frequency, which of course is very complementary to the silica vibrational matrix built around it to be that of a very rooted construct. Okay. Then this next section right here, we'll be discussing the selenite seen on both sides, hewn to the core. So selenite is a white gray crystal on the outside of the wooden core, inside the core of the device. Selenite is a very fantastic 6th, 7th, 8th non-physical chakra student back to one's godhead, which thereby makes it a very powerful way to, of course, clear debris between one's highest self and one's conscious self, which for the spiritual adept is its own merit of noteworthy application. So the aspect with that high frequency connection point, clear off debris between higher spiritual guidance, also works in capacity to have that high frequency divine transmutation, burn off stagnancies from the entire auric field through, quite simply, divine intervention alignment. And so with that, of course, being said, that's very, very nice. But where it truly shines in this little half-hour dissertation rant I've had with this video so far, in this entire closed-loop reactive circuit with all these very vast crystalline components in ignition sequence, it works in the sequence to do so. It takes the entire crystalline pitch and it purifies all these crystals. It takes the entire crystalline pitch and it amplifies the entire crystal group, but perhaps most importantly, it brings the entire crystalline pitch and also works to harmonize and bring equilibrium to the entire crystalline group. So that, of course, is always the triumphant trifecta I say for last intentionally, to be a very overscore highlight of the critical nature of selenite in the construct of a spirit tool. And so with that, of course, the purification, amplification, and harmonization of the entire reactive circuit, most importantly with a divine connection overture, makes for a very dynamic, efficient spirit tool based on one's highest guidance, which is the big goal here. Then affixed to the selenite on both sides would be another dose of black kyanite seen right here, like mentioned up here. So the aspect of kyanite, like I mentioned very briefly before, is a very rapid transfer of energy in the mineral kingdom. So of course this next section will be my whimsically fast penmanship to do my best to illustrate its rapid transference. So it takes the entire frequency pitch, but most importantly routes the energy for rapid direction of the current. So in that capacity, when the black kyanite is the dominant focus of the selenite configuration right here, it works very quickly to rapidly disperse the energy into the earth absolute quick as possible to, once again, be very rooted, obviously, and of course take the entire crystalline frequency pitch worn as a talisman and rapidly disperse it and make any bypass requirements into the earth to be grounded absolute quick as possible, which can serve like another etheric contingency, kind of like etheric Teflon, to rapidly disperse energy absolute in the earth as quick as possible is a big prerogative. And of course can work like a surge protector to ensure the excess overture pitch, of course, is getting into the earth at a very, very high premium. Hence black kyanite is of the essence for all spirit tools for exactly that purpose as well, irregardless of platform designation. And by golly, that would be the entirety of the crystalline composition. So as a quick little summary, of course, it's quite the dynamic powerhouse with a very, very diverse crystal ignition sequence that's quite vast. But the big focused aspect, like mentioned before, is that it's very, very grounding and rooting frequency. It's the primary focus of the energy with a very powerful higher guidance, clarity, supportive agent up here with the coherence ratio, with many light body dharmic accelerants strapped to the whole thing to, of course, encourage the very cosmic rapid alignment, yet in the most stable fashion via vibrational engineering possible, and to keep things very rooted as one fulfills their highest dharmic alignment function. Anyhow, well, that'd be it. 1,000 blessings, and may the force be with us all.